Hello, my name is Father James Kelleher, and I'm a priest in the Society of Our Lady of the Most Holy Trinity. I'm the founder and director of Eucharistic Family Rosary Crusade. I do Rosary Crusades all over the United States, England, Ireland, and even in Central America. Today I'd like to talk to you about Saint Maximilian Kolbe, the great Polish saint who had such a great devotion to the Virgin Mary, especially under her title of the Immaculate. And so in Latin, he liked to use the term Immaculata, which means the Immaculate One. Kolbe was born in 1894 in Poland, and he grew up in a farming family. And at the age of 14, he entered the Franciscan novitiate, the conventional Franciscans. And at the age of 18, he was sent to Rome to study philosophy and theology. Now, Kolbe was a very bright young man, and he earned a doctorate in philosophy in 3 or 4 years, and then a doctorate in theology 3 or 4 years after that. So he took these intellectual gifts given to him and put them at the service of our Lord and Our Lady. While he was a seminarian in Rome, he had a great desire to evangelize the whole world, to win the whole world for Christ through the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And he found a special spiritual tool for doing this. One day, his rector told the whole seminary about the miraculous medal and the miraculous conversion of Alphonse Ratisbon, an agnostic Jew. Well, the power of this conversion really made an imprint on Kolbe, and he decided to use the miraculous medal in all of his work of evangelization. And he founded a group called the Knights of the Immaculata. How do you become a member of the Knights of the Immaculata? First, you wear the miraculous medal every day. Second, you do a consecration to the Blessed Virgin Mary according to the formula of Saint Maximilian Kolbe. And third, you evangelize in your spheres of influence, helping to bring your family and friends closer to Jesus through Mary. Now, after Kolbe was ordained at the age of 24, he was sent back to Poland, and he taught for a few years at the seminary. But Kolbe had a very heavy cross he had to carry, because one of his lungs was filled with tuberculosis and basically became useless. So he was a missionary operating essentially with one lung. And it got so bad that they actually had to put him in a special hospital for people with tuberculosis, where mainly he just had to rest and pray. But Kolbe didn't sit still. He had his miraculous medal in his pocket, and he called the miraculous medal his silver bullet, his spiritual bullet, because as he gave it to different people, practicing Catholics, Protestants, Jews, agnostics, atheists, he found that as he gave that medal out, the Virgin Mary prayed for them, and all kinds of graces were given to these people. Some of the graces were graces of conversion. For instance, he converted a number of Jewish people to the Catholic faith through the medal. Others were graces of healing. But the basic principle that he discovered was that when you give the medal to someone, the Virgin Mary prays for them, and they receive the graces that they need to follow Jesus. Kolbe, as I said earlier, he had a burning passion inside of him to evangelize, to win the world for Jesus Christ through the Immaculate Heart of Mary. He did this by founding a monthly newspaper magazine called the Knight of the Immaculata. And he was printing that out of a local monastery for about 4 or 5 years. But in 1927, when he was only 33 years old, he was given permission by the provincial to found a monastery totally devoted to evangelization of the world, of bringing people to Jesus through Mary. And so he began to gather young men in that monastery. He started out with about 5. Well, do you know that from 1927 to 1939, his monastery grew from 5 or 6 men to over 700 friars? That's miraculous, isn't it? But you see, he understood. He let the Virgin Mary do the heavy lifting in his apostolate. And what he did was give out the medal, and of course, preach the gospel and hear confessions, celebrate Mass. But he understood that Jesus has given Mary this special role to assist you and me in evangelization. Well, in 1939, the Germans overran Poland, and in 1941, they arrested Father Kolbe and put him in infamous concentration camp called Auschwitz. Well, what happened in that camp? The Nazis worked them like dogs, and they especially treated the priests badly because they were very anti-church. So Kolbe often was beaten during the day, and one day he was beaten so mercilessly that his fellow prisoners had to sneak him into the camp hospital where they thought he was going to die, but he miraculously recovered. But in spite of all these different things, what did Kolbe do? Well, at night, he would be there laying in his bed, and men would crawl on the floor over to the side of his bed, and there he would hear their confessions. He was always a man for others. Well, one day, something very dramatic happened. 3 men escaped from the concentration camp. So the commandant selected 10 men to die in a starvation bunker. One of these was a married man. And as the married man was being carried off to the bunker, he started crying, "My wife, my children, what's going to happen to them?" So Kolbe broke rank and offered to take this man's place. So the commandant allowed him to do so. Well, what happened? Kolbe went into that bunker with those 9 other men. And there he led them in prayer. He prepared their souls to go home to God. Well, when you're placed in a starvation bunker and starved to death, most ordinary men go crazy at about the 2-week mark and die. Well, Kolbe's men didn't go crazy. They continued to pray with Kolbe. Obviously, they'd be praying the rosary, the memorare, singing hymns in honor of our Lord and Our Lady. And so these men died with the peace of Christ in their heart. After over 2 weeks, Kolbe was still alive. And the Nazis couldn't stand to see this man live this way with peace, being starved to death. So they sent the doctor in, and they injected his arm with carbolic acid. And on the eve of August 14th, he died. That was the eve of the Feast of the Assumption, the feast where we celebrate the Immaculate Mother of God being taken up into heaven. Kolbe is a man for others. Kolbe is a man for our times. Pope John Paul II called him the patron saint of our difficult century. Ave Maria.